I make my own harnesses, and today I'm going to show you how you can make your own harnesses too. There's going to be minimal sewing, and I think you'll find that the buckle that I've added is going to be a game changer. I'm showing you how quickly I can take this harness off, and then I'm going to show you how quickly I can put it back on. This has been game changing for me because I get extremely overstimulated after I've been partaking in strapping activities, and I just want to get my harness off immediately. But then if I want to partake again, I want to put it right back on and not have to keep adjusting it. Now let's get into supplies. You're going to need 1-inch polypropylene webbing, and you'll need at least 4 yards of it for a typical canvas harness. This pack of 6 that I'm showing comes with 5 yards of each color, so you can make 6 different harnesses for $15. Next, you're going to need buckles, and this is just a big set of buckles for $12. An alternative is a ladder slider buckle. These don't work as well, but these are what came on the harness that I purchased. Next, you're going to need a snap making kit. This comes with an installation tool, but I don't love it, so I end up purchasing this snap fastener tool. It is a lot more expensive. It ended up being $35. So I'm going to break the harness up into 3 separate parts. This first part that we're doing are these L pieces, which I am making in blue. And these are the only pieces that you will need to sew. And so I have my deconstructed harness that I purchased off Amazon. And don't worry, you don't need to have one as a pattern at home because I'm going to be giving you all the measurements here in a second. So this first piece that I'm using as the blue piece is going to be 17 inches. And you're going to cut a second blue piece at 17 inches. So then you have the left and the right L. And what I love about this material is after you cut it, you're just going to use a flame to make the raw edges melt. And then they won't have any strings. You don't even have to sew them. Now it's time to construct our L piece. Now stay with me here, this is going to be kind of confusing. So we've got our buckle, we're going to feed it through the blue piece, we're going to make sure it's going through the buckle on the side that there is only one hole. This is going to be a lot easier if you already have a harness to measure with, but I'm going to give you the measurements here in a second if you don't have one. So from the buckle to the top of the upside down L, it's going to be about 8.5 to 9 inches. And I'm showing you the measurement here. And then you'll measure about 1.5 to 2 inches from the buckle and make a triangle shape to fold over the blue piece on itself. See, I'm showing you here. It's about 1.5 from the beginning of the triangle and then about 2 inches from where it ends. Now this is the scary part. I know we all hate sewing if you're not someone who sews every day. I really don't know technical sewing terms, but I put the foot down and then I spun the wheel on the side so that the needle goes in and kind of pins my work in place. Now I'm just going to sew that triangle in place, making a few stitches along the triangle, putting the foot down, turning my spinny thing to put the needle back in place, and then making a few more stitches, and then I'm just going around and around and around, doing that probably 3 or 4 times, because the more times I go over it, the sturdier it's going to be. Then I'm going to pull off my work, cut the loose threads, and I'll show you the finished result. I used purple thread so it was easier to see, but I've just got a little triangle there. Next, we're going to thread our second buckle on the same piece, and we're again going to go through the side with only one hole. And I'm feeding the webbing through the front of the buckle, so the overlapping edges are going to be facing the inside of the harness. And then I'm just sewing over top of these 2 edges, and I'm going to go over it multiple times. So again, it's going to be very sturdy. And here you go, I'm showing you the finished result. Now we're going to do the exact same thing, but we need to make it opposite so that we have a left and a right side. So I literally just flipped over the one I just did to use it as a pattern. And then again, I'm going to feed through my buckle. I'm going to make that opposite triangle. and I'm gonna sew over top of it. I'm giving you a little bit better angle of what I'm doing this time. I really need to make sure that the edges are sharp here so that I get that perfect triangle. And I want to make sure that it's going to be exactly at the same point as the first side that I did, because you'll be able to see if it's uneven when you're wearing the harness. And then again, just sewing the triangle, putting the foot down, turning the wheel. You're making sure that the needle is holding your work in place while the foot is up. So then you're able to move your work around while the needle is in place. And that's why I'm constantly like moving things around. And then we're again going to check with the first side and make sure everything is exactly the same measurements. I did end up cutting about 1 to 2 inches off of this bottom portion on each side because I prefer my harness to sit lower, but this is all up to personal preference. So again, I'm feeding in my second buckle and I'm putting the edges down so then they're not showing, and then I'm just gonna sew directly over top of that, and I'm making sure everything is exactly the same as the first side that I did. Now that that's finished, we're going to be adding our snaps. Now it's very important to fold over the nylon when you're doing your snaps because you want it to be extra strong. I found if I don't fold it over, the snap is more likely to break. This part can get very confusing, and honestly, it might just take a lot of trial and error. But what I found is working best for me is using a seam ripper to make the hole, and then using another tool to push that hole open and put my snap pieces through this. There's going to be 4 separate snap pieces that you're going to be using. And again, you'll have to follow the instructions of whatever kit that you use. But you want to make sure the first one that you put through is going to be the bottom of the snap. And here's me using my tool to make the bottom of the snap. The reason you're making this the bottom of the snap is because this part is actually going to be folded under. So here where my thumbs are is where you want to put the top of the snap. So again, I'm using the seam ripper, and then I'm going to use my other tool to make a hole, and then you'll see me using the black top part of the snap to push through that hole. Now, when these snap kits come, you're going to actually have 4 separate pieces, and the black top part will actually come with a small little metal piece like that, and it goes right on top, and you're going to use your little tool, and it's very, very simple. You're just going to close the clamps, and then you have a snap. And then you'll also just repeat this on the other L, just kind of doing it the opposite way so that the snap is facing the other way. For the rest of the harness, you'll need 2 more pieces. I used the pink, and these are 27 inches each. And I put snaps on the top, just like I did on my backwards L. And then I need the back part of my harness, and this was 48 inches. I ended up trimming mine quite a bit. It's probably about 40 inches. And I forgot to mention these little guys are really helpful. I'll show you what I'm doing with them in a second. So now we're constructing our harness finally. I've got my O-ring, and I'm just gonna go ahead and snap these into place. And then I'm going to get my pink pieces, and I'm going to snap those in below. I first put these little buckles on that I showed you, and then I take off my pink buckles. I find it's easiest to install them. I twist the pink piece and then feed it through. I find that this is the best way to put it on, and then it'll end up the correct way. And then I buckle that one in, and then we're moving on to our back piece. I'm sliding in those small sliders, and you'll see what I'm doing with those in a second. And I'm flipping over the back webbing, feeding it through the buckle, and then tucking in the loose ends to those smaller buckles. This is essential for me because I hate those loose ends flopping around everywhere. And then I'm also going to do the same to my lower pieces, so those loose ends are also tucked in. And then I have my finished product. And if you haven't noticed, it's the bisexual flag. Let me know if you made one and if these instructions helped you.